Dear learners, today we are going to learn about tourism policy and planning. The objectives of this unit are to appreciate the need for tourism policy and also to know the importance of planning in tourism. As you all know, tourism is a growth-oriented sector. The advantages of the growth of tourism is possible when there is a proactive tourism policy which is properly formulated and implemented at the government level. In a large country or region, different policies may be adopted for different areas, but these together must comprise an overall policy statement for the area. Generally, tourism policy must reflect the overall development policy because policy and plan of the country or region so that tourism is an integrated sector. The government should assume a lead role in determining tourism policy because policy affects the entire country and its communities and must balance economic, environmental and social concerns. Private sector should also be involved in the decision making of the policy. The NTOs and the regional tourist organizations, they have the responsibility of framing the tourism policy. In our case, in India, we have Ministry of Tourism, which is having the responsibility of framing the national tourism policy. And at state levels, we have the state tourism boards, which are formulating the policy at the state level. Now let us understand the concept of tourism policy. A policy is basically a set of guidelines, a practical framework within which tourism development is undertaken through collective and individual decisions. A tourism policy broadly explains the procedures, stipulations and eligibility criteria needed for the development of tourism in a particular period. Policy is dynamic in nature as it addresses the development taking place in society. It is a social process seeking to establish various linkages among a cross-section of people involved in a variety of different organizations to achieve common goals. Generally, tourism policy should reflect the overall development policy of the country or region so that tourism is well integrated with it. Now let us learn that what is the purpose of tourism policy. Learners, as you know, destinations seek economic and social benefits from tourism. Now these benefits are enjoyed by the stakeholders. The tourism policy seeks to maximize the positive impacts of tourism and minimize the negative impacts of tourism. Tourism policy provides framework for sustainable development and also to provide high quality visitor experiences at destination without compromising on environmental, social and cultural integrity of the destination. The tourism policy should take advantage of the growing global travel and trade to help in positioning tourist attractions on the international tourist map by creating a global brand. Policy finds lasting solutions by taking all issues of the destination areas into consideration. Now, what are the objectives of tourism policy? The most important role of tourism policy is to give direction to destination planners and what destination is to achieve in long term from tourism development. tourism policy fulfills the following functions. First, the economic consideration. Now, developing and promoting tourism in destinations to improve balance of payment, to earn foreign exchange, for regional development, for diversification of the economy, new employment opportunities. So these are some of the economic considerations for the destination to have tourism development. Now let us look at the socio-cultural considerations. It is to maximize the socio-cultural benefits of tourism, such as cultural exchange, revival of traditional arts and crafts, ceremonies, rural development, etc. Some of the adverse socio-cultural effects of tourism should be considered, which can be deterioration of important historic and archaeological sites, social degradation, overcrowding by tourists, loss of convenience for local residents. These are some of the socio-cultural considerations which need to be addressed. The other considerations for policy is environmental. Controlling the environmental impacts due to tourism development, such as pollution, land use problem, are some of the environmental issues that need to be considered in the policy. The objectives of tourism policy are achieved through tourism planning, legislation and regulation. Now, legislation and regulation, it can include like recognition of travel agencies, certain guidelines to be followed by hotels as given by Ministry of Tourism, the basic tourism law for the protection and preservation of tourist facilities, and the natural, historical and cultural resources of the country. The regulations can be in form of Consumer Protection Act, Wildlife Protection Act. Another way of implementing the policy is through facilitation of tourism development. That can be done by granting subsidies or tax reduction to the tourism projects or building tourism infrastructure. Now let us learn some of the areas that are addressed by tourism policy. The role, some of the areas which the tourism policy addresses are the role of tourism within the overall development of the country or region, taxation, that means the types of taxes and the levels, financing of the tourism projects, developing and maintaining tourism products, infrastructure development, regulatory practices like for airlines, travel agencies, hotels, etc., community involvement, human resource development, marketing strategies, technology, public-private partnership in tourism development and management. So these are some of the areas that tourism policy addresses. Now further, we will move to what is tourism planning and development. Now the international tourism sector has seen the uninterrupted growth in arrivals for 8 straight years, with 2017 growth being the highest since 2010, with a record performance of 1.6 trillion US dollars. Today the business volume of tourism equals or even surpasses that of oil exports, food products or automobiles. This data we have taken from UNWTO. Tourism is viewed as a key economic contributor in developed as well as developing countries worldwide. Many countries in the world are now seeking to develop tourism for its benefits. it has been found that where tourism has not been well planned and managed may have brought some short-term economic benefit, but in the longer term, there are problems of environment-related problems, socio-cultural related problems that the destination faces. The resident population has to suffer and the tourist experience is also affected. The destinations where there is unplanned tourism development has lost to better planned destinations elsewhere in the world. Even the image of the destination is tarnished. Now, let us learn about the nature of tourism planning. Now, tourism planning basically seeks to provide a detailed, on-the-ground outline as to how each of the factors affecting the success of a tourism destination should be developed. Tourism development goals are to bring positive social and economic benefits to the community and also optimizing tourist experience. Tourism policy formulation and tourism planning are different types of processes. They must be integrated in the ongoing process of destination management. The ultimate goal of the planning process is to identify the exact nature and timing of the specific actions and activities that must be carried out effectively for tourism development. Now let us learn that what is the need for tourism planning at the destination. So first, let us understand the advantages and disadvantages of tourism development. Now first, we will discuss the advantages of tourism development. Now the first very important advantage for the destination is the economic benefit. Now economic benefits can be foreign exchange earning from international tourism, increased income, employment opportunities for both skilled and unskilled. As we all know that tourism is a labor intensive industry. It also creates GDP for the country. It increases government revenues. It helps in diversifying the economy of the destination. So these are some of the economic benefits of tourism. The tourism also serves as a catalyst for other sectors such as agriculture, fisheries, forestry, manufacturing, etc. Tourism brings a lot of infrastructure development in form of roads, water, electricity, telecommunication. It also helps in environmental preservation as well as cultural heritage preservation. Socially, if we talk about tourism, it provides recreational, cultural and commercial facilities and services for both tourists and residents. It also helps in reducing prejudicial attitudes, political differences, and somehow helping in cross-cultural exchange. So these were some of the advantages of tourism development at the destination. But there are problems also generated because of tourism development at the destination. So some of the problems are it develops excess demand. Like during summers, some of our destinations, hill stations, they face this problem of excess demand. Nainital, Shimla, these are the destinations in the hills which are facing a lot of problems because of the excess demand of tourists. Tourism also creates leakages. So that is somehow detrimental for the economy of the destination. It also creates problem in diversions of funds. There are social problems also created by tourism development like income differences, social differences, crime, prostitution, child labor, and so on. It also degrades cultural and physical environment, and in some cases, it has been found that there is loss of cultural identity and integrity. The other problems of tourism development is that it adds to inflation of land values and the price of local goods and services. At times, it leads to cross-cultural misunderstandings. So with this, we now know what are the problems and advantages of tourism development. Now, keeping these in mind, good planning and management of tourism is essential to optimize the benefits of tourism and mitigate the problems that might be generated by tourism development. So, some of the reasons we will learn that why tourism planning is needed. One, to coordinate the role of public and private sectors. Another, to properly direct development, to demarcate the areas for development, to determine the types of tourism to be promoted, to prevent negative impacts, to regulate and legislate, to improve the quality of services, to train human resources required in the industry, to market a destination. Now, the goals for tourism development should be very clear. Now, the tourism planners, they should aim for the following goals when they are developing tourism. One, providing a framework for raising the living standard of the people through the economic benefits of tourism. Two, developing infrastructure and providing recreational facilities for visitors and residents. Another goal is to ensure types of development within the destination that are appropriate to those areas. Another goal, establishing a development program consistently with the cultural, social, and economic philosophy of the government and the people of the host country. And finally, the tourist, who is a very important entity in this whole tourism business, is optimizing visitor satisfaction. Now, there are certain aspects of tourism development. It has been seen globally that tourism development has to be based on a policy and careful planning. Tourism planning involves a number of components, namely tourist attractions, transportation, accommodation, tourist facilities and services, and institutional elements. Now, involvement of government, private players, and community is required for the development and growth of tourism in the destination. Now, some of the features of tourism planning and development have to be taken care of for sustainable and competitiveness of destination. One, land use regulations, which is also known as zoning. Now, in this, tourism development requires land use plan where the planning indicates the specific areas for hotels, resorts, transportation system, roads, railway station, airport, rail network, retail shops, banks, foreign exchange, tourist information offices, conservation parks, amusement parks, some other infrastructure like water supply, electric power, sewage, solid waste disposal, and telecommunications. Zoning regulations and specific architectural, landscaping, and engineering design standards are prepared for this level of planning. Planning for tourist attractions may include visitor use and flow analysis and related recommendations. Development of tourist attraction and activities is another feature for sustainable tourism development and competitiveness of the destination. Now, this includes natural, cultural, and special features and related activities of an area that attract tourists to visit it. The conservation and preservation of the attractions like cultural and natural heritage has to be given priority. Another aspect is creation and maintenance of infrastructure. Tourism development needs infrastructure, which includes water supply, electric power, sewage, and solid waste disposal, telecommunication, etc. The infrastructure, once created, requires maintenance also. The level of this maintenance can greatly affect success of tourism in the area. So, it is not only just creation of the infrastructure, but equally important is the maintenance of the infrastructure. Like if I give you example, the promptness and adequacy for snow removal from public roads at ski resorts. Now, another aspect of tourism development is the promotional efforts. As we all know now that tourism brings economic benefits, also social benefits. Also, it is important for the preservation and conservation of our natural and cultural heritage. It is important that the promotional efforts to be taken up for the destination at the local level by integrating the community, decision makers, political leaders, etc. Another important aspect to be looked into tourism development is transportation. It is important because it helps in the accessibility to the destination as well as a strong internal transportation system is required that links the various attractions within the destination. So, there should be a national and international plan of roads relevant for tourism, building of new roads where required, improving road sign systems. Railway is an important means of transportation for both domestic and international tourists. So, this area should also be taken care of. Like in India, we have luxury tourist trains like Palace on Wheels, Maharaja Express. There are also special trains like Shatabdi, Rajdhani. Adequate airline connectivity to tourist destinations with world-class airport facilities is also required. Plan for ports and marinas equipped for tourism should also be considered. Now, accommodation is another unit that is used by the tourist and which needs consideration. So, hotels and other types of facilities and their related services where tourists stay overnight during travel has to be considered, and hotels are actually permanent structures that grace the landscape for a long time. So, there should be proper allotment of land and are generally allowed in commercial zones. The number of hotel rooms needed are to be anticipated when we are considering the planning for accommodation. Financing of the tourism projects is very important because there is heavy investment, capital investment goes into the tourism projects. Tourism projects can be like hotels, airports, commercial centers, etc. So, there should be certain institutions financing these tourism projects. Also, there should be some incentives and benefits to these tourism projects, which will definitely help in encouraging investment in the tourism sector. And especially there are certain areas like the rural areas where development is needed, and such benefits in form of incentives will help in the development of tourism. In India, we have Tourism Finance Corporation of India, which is the financing body. Another element that requires consideration is the institutional elements, and these are basically necessary to develop and manage tourism. Now let us learn the planning process There are certain steps involved in tourism planning. First is the study preparation. It is basically identifying the project of study and its terms of reference. The government, in consultation with the private sector and general public, through institutional process, decides to develop, expand tourism or improve its present development. The project terms of reference are carefully written to achieve the desired results and outputs. The plan should have a horizon year which provides a time framework for making projections, setting targets and staging developments. Another step in the planning process is determining the objectives. Setting the objectives of the project at the beginning of the study. These objectives should be realistic to achieve and they should reinforce the general development objectives of the country. The objectives may be modified later depending on the nature of feedback. The third stage in the planning process is surveys, which involves collecting data, both qualitative and quantitative. It includes field surveys of tourist attractions, facilities and services, transportation and other infrastructure. It includes discussions with government officials, private sectors and community. It also involves reviewing of existing documents, maps and data. The tourist profile is also collected through surveys. The next stage is analysis. Now, both quantitative and qualitative analysis and synthesis of the survey information has to be done very carefully. The major opportunities and problems or constraints for developing tourism in the area are identified after analyzing and synthesizing the data. Now, different types of analysis based on data collected include projection of tourist expenditure. It can be market analysis. It can be projection of transportation. It can be environmental, socio-cultural impacts. It forms the basis for the plan formulation and recommendations. Now, the next stage is plan formulation. It is formulating a policy for development along with operational aspects. In other words, a blueprint keeping in view the resources available. Like for example, it can be developing a marketing strategy, or it can be manpower development policy, or it can be investment policy. Another stage is of recommendations, that is how to go about. It includes enhancement and distribution of economic benefits. For example, tourist promotion program, education and training program, public and private sector organizational structure, staffing requirements. So these can be some of the recommendations which can be based on the analysis and synthesis and the plan formulation. And finally, we have implementation and monitoring in the planning process, that is putting the plan and recommendations into operation and continuously collecting the feedback on the implementation. Evaluation is also done of the various steps that we have done. Now let us summarize the whole unit. Tourism policy is important for the destination as it gives the clear idea as to where the destination is going and what it is seeking to become in long term. The quality of tourism planning and development will determine the ultimate success and longevity of any destination area. So, both policy and planning processes should be fully integrated to achieve the desired results. Thank you, learners.